Yeah.
Hey, there we go. We play some
Oh,
Jill Scott.
that also means we gotta behave. Hey, Latasha.
I'm hyped
Right.
today.
Jilly from Philly, yes.
I know a couple people said that they weren't going to be able to join today.
It's something in the water of this week. I don't know what it is.
Look, I gave y'all the option, okay? Y'all said y'all wanted to start right now. I was like, okay, we gonna start right now at the end of the year.
Oh, you know, I know. I mean, I know excuses. I'm just saying.
Listen, I don't know about everybody else. I'm ready.
You know what? I feel
I'm
that.
ready.
I hear that.
Listen, going to work motivates me for these classes because I got to get the hell up out of here.
No, I'm excited. I was helping out. I think you guys might have remember Alexis.
Yeah.
She's doing a hotel out in Hagerstown, and I was getting her star report. She had me order her star report today. It made me think about y'all. So I'm gonna show you the process.
Okay.
Just so y'all know, because the more you know, I did it for them, and they're like, "It's that easy? That's all you gotta do?" I was like, "Yeah, it's that easy, y'all."
Raymond, is
Yep.
the woman, I know she's opening a hotel or working on opening a hotel in Philadelphia, right?
In Philadelphia. Who's in
It was
Philadelphia?
supposed to be I think one of the speakers, I think you were saying she,
Oh, Shannon Maldonado.
okay.
Yeah,
Is
she's
that
gonna.
like far in progress or?
Yeah, I mean, she's about to open. I think she was supposed to open when we talked earlier in the summer. She was supposed to open right around now, but it got pushed back to February. And I
Okay.
told her, and she was bummed out about it. I was like, girl, you about to open in Black History
Oh,
Month.
Come on.
Relax.
Yeah.
oh,
You know what
that
I'm
happens all
saying?
the time with
Yeah.
even with the pros. That happens all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Is she doing a soft brand or
no, it's like a small. So she has a concept shop already.
okay?
And she is doing another concept shop with I think like 7 rooms above it. In a small it's a beautiful building, but it's like like a small retail kind of rowish home kind of looking
Okay, kind of, yeah, like
commercial, but it's commercial.
yeah,
They all over DC.
yeah.
It's pretty big, but I think it's like 7 rooms above it.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. You know, she came across my mind earlier this week, and I know she's gonna be one of our speakers, but I wasn't quite sure how far along she was in her process.
Yeah, she's pretty far along. If you follow her on social media, her
I don't. I need to like connect with her. If that's okay.
yeah, and I'll send you her social media because she posts updates. She posts updates on her page
Okay.
on her progress.
Okay.
And real quick, Latasha,
Yeah.
you found a site. Is that right?
Yeah. So I have currently now 2 options.
What?
So yes, I found a private owner who owns about 15 acres. So I have that option with him. And then the other one I think I talked to you about briefly, where it's more of like a co-op type situation where the neighborhood or the community will have like part ownership. So I had a follow-up conversation with them last Friday, and they do understand that there will be some type of, I'll need to have some type of ownership in the land.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of see how things unfold. Right now, they're going back to the community to decide who they're going to extend LOIs out to. So it's going to be a very like loose LOI because I was asking her, asking them more questions about that. So I should hear back in the next, probably next week and a half.
Okay.
On if they decide to extend, some type of LOI, to me to continue conversations. So I'm still like trying to balance out the pros and the cons. I think that when it comes to like rates in the capital and everything, it would be a definite pro. Like I had conversations to them about, I need to have a feasibility study done. And she's like, well, actually, there's probably a way to where we got to have it done anyways. So we
Right.
can just include the hotel. So I'm like, okay, okay, that would be great.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm just kind of, still going through the process, and we're taking it, one step at a time. Um, because I'm not as familiar with how it would lay out. And this is something new to them too. So, we're just gonna see how it goes. At least I got a couple options.
That's
So I'm
awesome.
excited about that.
So, and obviously this class specifically is about site identification.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference between the two sites?
So the difference in the two sites, I would say the main thing would be the ownership perspective. So with the one private owner, it's literally in the same like block. They're literally like streets from each other.
Okay.
So the private owner, his is larger. So I would have literally, more options. I think he's got like two separate areas where I could choose, where I want to be.
Right.
Um, and then the other one, I think for me, for that one, it's more about the ownership perspective with the community. Like what would that look like? So they would basically be like, the way they explained it to me is that they would be like the property managers.
Got it.
Of the whole like mix.
The whole thing. Yep.
Yeah, of the whole thing. And then
there.
there's also a possibility that, my hotel could be in one building with other businesses instead of it being a standalone. So I think that that's really like the main things right now with those two options. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And so from a size perspective, are both sites about the same size?
Well, the one site that is with the nonprofit is a total of 5 acres.
Okay.
So that means that would be
acres.
Yeah, and the other one is like I could choose, right? Like he's open. He's got the land. He's like, you can do what you want to do with, with it, seems like. Yeah, so I would have more space, options to do what I want to do, I feel like. And the other one will probably be a little more confined, in a sense. Yeah.
This is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this class tonight.
I'm super excited for you. Now, one last question, really quick, because it'll help inform how this session will go. How many rooms are you specifically looking for, and does it matter from site to site? Which one?
You know what? I kind of took it down because at first, originally, I was saying 90 keys, but now I'm thinking more like 50 to 60.
Okay.
So I've been comparing it to, there is a hotel downtown, the Grady Hotel. They have 51 rooms and their total square footage is around 33,000. And I've been kind of focusing on about 40,000 square feet. So I'm thinking somewhere in that range of maybe like 50, 60 to start out. But making sure that I have room to expand later on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is gonna be a fun class then. This is gonna be helpful. And then welcome to John Jay.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hi everybody.
How you doing?
Good, excited to be here.
Man, we are excited to have you. I think we were supposed to, I know a couple couldn't make it today. I can't remember who, but a couple said that they would. I'm waiting to see if they actually show up, but we are going to get started. But John Jay, I got to put you on the spot because you weren't here last week, and that's no fault of your own. It's just how it is. But we got to know your icebreaker. We got to know your icebreaker. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to figure it out, but I need these answers to these questions. We need your name. We need your city and your hometown. We need your vision, property that you're looking at, if you are looking at one, or just what your overall vision is. the best advice you've ever received, and what you're looking to get out of the course. That's what we need to welcome you to the Unflagged Academy. Well, let me know. I'll give you a little bit of time.
Okay, I can work on that.
All right. Cool. And obviously today, site identification. I'm super excited to talk about it. We're gonna get into some of that initial feasibility. That's why it was helpful to understand kind of the size and the square footage. I have some tips and tricks that you can use to analyze. I'm going to show you how to pull the star report. Like I said before, I think that that's very critical. You're always going to need a star report, right? At the very elementary level, you can do some of the other market study research if you at least at a baseline have a star report, right? And so that's a $600 investment. I'm going to show you the things to look for, how to add properties specifically to your report. And that'll kind of be the baseline for a DIY market feasibility study. Okay. Also, in the member area, I uploaded some things that you can download. So I included one of my old star reports for the hotel in Albany, Georgia that we were working on. And I also uploaded the market and feasibility study that I did for financing for that project as well. And I did it 100% myself. The only real data I had was the star report and just city website information, just about the different things in the area. And I was able to put together that whole, I think it's like a 40-page report that I used to also get funding. So with that report that I created, was able to get a $10 million loan based off of it, right? And so you have that at your disposal. And there's one other thing that I add. Oh, I added a sample LOI as well, that you can use. So when you get a chance, go into the member area, you can download those items, and then you'll be all set. Be all set. John Jay, how you feel? You ready?
Yes, I guess. Okay, so name obviously is John J. Sherman. City and hometown, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri.
Nice.
Shout out to the Chiefs. And I guess my vision, I don't have a property that I've identified yet. I've been looking kind of throughout the year, but my vision is that I want to open a wellness retreat. I guess I don't know. I don't know. Hotel is the right word, but I want to have a property where I basically host like wellness retreats. It's a big interest of mine and something that I do frequently in my spare time and have done a lot over the past 2 years as a part of just like mental health and part of my spiritual journey. And I would like to have a space where people can come and get reprieve and just have a space to unwind. And then I guess the best advice that I've ever received was from my mom. When I would complain about work, she would, tell me basically like the work that you're doing is not always just for yourself. Even if you get assigned things that you don't want to do, is going to benefit you. So to always just like do it like you're doing it for yourself. And that's been helpful for me throughout my career. And what I'm looking to get out of the course is I'm really excited about community because Lexi told me that there was amazing people in the course, and obviously your leadership, and really to learn the blueprint on how to bring my vision to life. Because I think oftentimes I am getting ready to get ready a lot, and I feel like this is the step that I needed to like actually put things into action.
Yeah. And thank you for that, John Jay. We're super excited to have you. Got another sister on board. I think it's like 5 of y'all. Y'all holding it down for the sisters, you know what I'm saying?
Love that. Love to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited for you. So welcome. All right, we got that out the way. All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into the site identification. Let me share.
Damon, I had a quick question too. I'm not sure if
Yep.
this would fall into site identification or more so like construction, or like if you're flipping up space, or like fresh development from the ground up. But like I remember when doing a competition, and it wasn't focused on quite much, but it came up later when you're like trying to identify a site. And we were being asked questions like, how tall, how much space,
Mhm.
what, if it's new development, like, are you looking to use brick? Are you looking to use like, so I didn't know if that was like something to consider, or like, would a lot of the site, like investigations or just kind of searches be for properties that are already standing, similar to like Midtown Inn, for example. But obviously, when you like, say for instance, you were to have that property, and when you started doing renovations, a lot of that's going to feel like development, because some of it's going to be gutted out, some of it's going to have to
Right.
be, maybe new windows are going to have to be put up. So I wasn't quite sure like where in the process are those costs or like those details identified when
Yep.
you're seeing, when you're trying to figure out a site, because uh, we were working on preliminary with another program. Like it was like, oh, it's gonna be a tapestry, and we had like these like beautiful photos of what it will be like. And it was like, do you know how much that costs? Like, how many floors are you trying to have? And it was things that we just like did not think about.
Mhm.
So I just wasn't quite sure, where that fall in line, or like, do you start thinking about those things starting now from the site, trying to search your site, find your site?
Very much a great question, right? And that's the great debate: is it adaptive reuse, or are we doing it ground up? And so we'll actually touch on that. That's actually the first slide. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm sorry, yeah.
That no. It's perfect. It's a perfect segue. And also it bleeds into the course for next week as far as understanding the trades. Because when it comes to certain things, look, I'm not a GC. None of us are general contractors, right? And so when it comes even to um, building from the ground up, it's very hard for me to even know where pricing is, right? And you might remember over the pandemic, the cost of lumber skyrocketed,
I was gonna
right?
say
So any
everything.
project that you were trying to underwrite, you had to like add another 30 to 40% onto it just because of that issue with the supply chain.
Supply
And
chain and
so,
labor too, because I've heard some,
yep,
even with branded properties I've audited, like, and they would be getting a full renovation, and one of the GMs would be like, some days construction workers will show up, some days they wouldn't. It
right.
just, with the labor. And so and again, that's even, I'm thinking, even if you're doing adaptive reuse, because you could find a beautiful building, but the floor might need to be redone or just something. So okay,
Yep.
I'm glad to know it'll be covered, because me and Brittany was like, huh, what? We just looked at pretty photos on,
Right.
on Pinterest.
It's crazy because everything has a cost, right? So, and man, I wish that actually Alexis was actually in the course, because she's working on a project, and that's one of the things I gave her back as feedback was the construction budget is high, right? It is a fairly high construction budget, and just to give you a sense and idea of what I'm talking about, for the project in Georgia, obviously it's a different market, right? So it's Southern Georgia, but generally construction prices are generally the same. The cost of materials doesn't really change that much materially. The cost of labor, however, does, right? So what you would charge somebody to build in New York is not what you're charging somebody to build in Georgia, for sure. But for rural Maryland, I wouldn't expect it to be extremely high, but her development budget is around 13 million, but it's a 26 room hotel. I had a development budget of around 13 million for an 80 room hotel, right? And so when you break down the cost per key, very different. Very different. So These are all things to consider, and understanding the trades is going to be an important one as a segue to this class, because when it comes to getting any trade, whether it's your GC, your architect, your interior designer, I recommend getting 3 or 4 bids for that work from each individual trade, right? And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail next week, but very important. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. All right, here we go. So these are just a few of the things we'll talk, and I'll expand upon it a little bit more. But if you're getting raw land, right, and you're trying to do something from the ground up, these are the considerations that you have to look for. The first one, what are the height restrictions? Typically, when you look at city zoning, the way that they'll do it is most cities will do this, they'll keep certain buildings of a certain size in the same area, right? So this zone right here is only residential. You can only go up 3 stories. This is commercial, and this is, low density, so it lets you go up to 6 stories. Interesting thing about DC, there is no building in DC that goes above the height of the Washington Monument, right? So relatively, we have all, semi-low-rise buildings. Nothing really goes up above 8 stories. Other cities, obviously, you have skyscrapers, huge, floor to ceiling or floor area ratio, which is the number 2, which tells you for how large your floor plate is, multiply that times how high you can go up. What that means is, say you have a 3-to-1, right? Floor to area ratio. So for every square foot on the ground, you have 3 that you can go up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? Floor to area ratio. So if it's a 3-to-1 FAR, so every foot on the base, you have 3 feet you can go up.
Okay.
So the higher the FAR, the larger the building. And it also just depends on the amount of space that you have, right? I'll never forget, we had a property in, I believe it was in downtown LA that had like a 13-to-1, which basically allowed us to build a skyscraper. We could effectively go up, I think it was like 50-some stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then why is it that, and again, this could have been in a different space and also very limited space, because a lot of audiences were coming from like the brand perspective, but like there was this like anxiety with like square feet, like that's the only square, that's small, like you only have that amount of square feet, but like, does that necessarily make a difference? And like,
Yeah, because let's think about it real quick, right? So maybe in a certain district you have height restrictions. You also, if your floor plate is small, that restricts how high you can go.
okay, understood. Okay.
Right. So when you're thinking about that floor to area ratio, if you only have 1,000 square feet on the floor, then you only can go up a certain level, 3,000 feet. So it limits your ability to go high.
Okay.
Right. So sometimes it's a 2-to-1, sometimes it's 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Right. So those are just things to think about and to consider for sure.
Okay.
Another one when it comes to ground up that's important, really important, is considering parking. Right. That's actually more of a serious consideration than it is for adaptive reuse, and I'll talk about that in a second. The next one, what are the zoning restrictions? So typically any municipality, you can go on their website and you will be able to pull up the zoning code for that specific area, right? Can you do hospitality by right? Do you need to get a conditional use permit, which means that you'll have to go in front of city council to get approval, which means that you'll have to put that notice on the site and give, your neighbors, 90 days to comment. And are you gonna get a whole bunch of angry neighbors because they ain't really feeling the hotel being in their neighborhood and they're gonna show up? You know what I'm saying? The NIMBYism. Like, so what are the zoning restrictions in that area? And another one that's extremely important, what's the development cost? Typically, ground up can be very costly and more costly than adaptive reuse. Typically, that's not always the case. There's innovative ways to do ground up construction, and it all depends on the complexity. All depends on the materials. There's different materials that you can use that are going to be more costly or less costly across the board. But these are the general considerations. Now, Scott, to your point, if we're looking at adaptive reuse, the biggest thing is really the building envelope. What are you working with? What's the square footage of the building that we're talking about? Is it a 10,000 square foot building, 20,000 square foot building, 50,000 square foot building? All of those, are going to have different flexibilities and abilities as it relates to what we can do. How many rooms we could have? How big is the lobby going to be? What's going to be on the ground floor, right? Obviously, another consideration is also parking. This is a little tricky. Some buildings are grandfathered in, but they don't have parking already, right? And because if you're buying a property that was already a hotel, you don't necessarily have to add parking, right? If you're buying an old hotel that didn't have parking back in the day because it was built in 1920, it's not like you have to also buy a parking lot, but you do have to account for your guests and where they're going to park. I'll give you a perfect example. The Hotel Revival in Baltimore, because I live in Baltimore now, so I'm gonna be talking about Baltimore a lot. But the Hotel Revival in Baltimore does not have a parking lot. And the closest one is about 3 blocks away. So when they valet your car, it might take a while. So you better call them. You better call your car well in advance because they got to go 3 blocks to a small lot to get your vehicle, right? And they did that as a perk to offer for their guests. And that perk alone is the difference between being a 3-star hotel and a 4-star hotel, right? But also with adaptive reuse, depending on what the building was before. If you're buying an existing hotel, that's different. If you're buying a building that was either office or residential and you're converting it, you still have to figure out the zoning restrictions. If you're adding a bar and that hotel didn't have a bar before, still got to figure out the zoning restrictions. Can you do a bar by right? Can you do food service by right in that area? Because if you can't, that white sign is on the front of the building that gives the neighbors notice, you're going to have to do that. And so when you're looking at different municipalities' zoning codes, typically they'll have it so that you can go across and you'll see, okay, hospitality hotel, either is permitted, it'll have a P, or conditional permitting, which is a C on there. And these are important things to know, to understand, and considerations. Now, I told you in the process of going through this course, we are actually going to pursue this deal. So we're going to do it live. I wanted to have this class first, then so we could discuss the deal at hand. And then I'm going to send another email with my LOI, right? So you got the LOI in the member portal. We're going to figure out what the price, the right price is. We're going to do that today. And I'm going to draft up that LOI and I'm going to send that in and we're going to go from there. We're going to see how it shapes out. So this property is a 20-room hotel, 1.7 million at a cost per key of 85,000, right? It says in the notes that there's an additional 500 square feet of addition that's possible to extend the property line 4 levels. And so you might see that in the very back, right here, like this, like such. What they're saying is back here, you could go up.
Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
And bring this whole thing to 4 levels. My vision for this little back area is just to have a little rooftop.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right. If you can, my thought process is if you can build an additional 5,000 square feet, then quite frankly, it can support weight bearing load. Right. Which thus means that, we could put a little smaller rooftop up there and then be all right.
Okay.
And let's see. Now to the star report. I'm gonna show y'all how to pull your own star report. What is a star report, y'all? Can anybody tell me what a star report is? Why is it so important? Why do you need this thing?
I know we discussed it a little bit last class, but essentially it's a report that gives you a good, and sorry for the noise in the background, washing clothes, but it gives you good insight to like the market, potential market that you want your hotel or business, and it gives you insight to like what your comp set would be. So what's currently there, and like it just gives you important information like what type of occupancy, what is the demand, what is your, what's the average daily rate, essentially like how much can you like get away with, I guess would be a way to say it, in regards to like charging your guests, right, when it comes to like rates and prices and things like that. Also tells you like the segment of like travel. And I know it's over sometimes a range of dates too sometimes, or at least the ones that we studied at the hotel. So you could kind of see like, oh, this was in town, so this is what's going on, or, this is what the demand looks like through and through.
Yes. And real quick, I'm going to share my screen and show you the same star report that's available in the member portal is one that I pulled for the hotel we're working on in Georgia. And let me share my screen so you can see that. And the numbers are going to be kind of small, so bear with me. It's a lot of data in these reports. So, all right, so here we go. You can see the full screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is the response tab. So this shows you the 5 hotels. This is our comp set, right? So you can see right here, custom trend, Hotel Gordon comp set. I pulled it for 6 years. The 6-year version is $600. And you get to see basically all of the raw data, the annual data, the monthly data for the neighboring hotel occupancy, average daily rate, RevPAR, revenue per available room. This is a very critical component to getting funding. In any hospitality project, a lender is going to make you pull a star report, right? There's never been a situation where that hasn't been the case, right? So it's a $600 investment, very important. So this shows you the 5 hotels that I added into our comp set. I know it's kind of small to see, but it's the Hilton Garden Inn in Albany, Hampton Inn, Courtyard, Fairfield Inn, Town Place Suites in Albany, Georgia. Right? It tells you their opening date, how many rooms, and then these dots show you all the months in that given year that they reported their data to Star. Okay. What you'll notice is sometimes when you're pulling comps, when you're looking for comp data and you're looking for the comparables. So when I say comps, you're looking for comparables to the property that you're going to develop, that you're looking at in your area, or comps that you can defend when you're doing your underwriting. You're going to notice that not every single hotel reports their data, right? So you may or may not be able to use you know, that specific hotel's comp data. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. But this is a very important document, right? It shows you the table of contents, first slide. This is showing you the occupancy broken down by year, by month, ADR, by year, by month, RevPAR, right? How much supply was in the market, right? So obviously over time, you get more hotel rooms into the market. Maybe some hotels are only open seasonally. Maybe they take rooms offline for a period of time, right? What does that look like? The demand and the revenue, right? So you have a copy of this. So you could just take a look at it. It shows you all the data that you would need. Changes by year, 12-month rolling average, you know, what was the highest number over that 12-month period? What was the lowest? Great data for you to use.
Question, Damon.
Yep.
There it's like a minimum amount of properties, correct?
You have the minimum is 4. You have to at least have 4
Okay.
properties in your comp set to be able to pull it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me show you, I'm gonna show you what it looks like, because if this is the most important piece of data that you're gonna need, you need to know how to go and get it. So let me share my screen now. STR.com. All right. We are going to figure out how do we get a star report. This is the trend report. Let me actually go back to the home page. All right, back to the home page. We need a trend report. Go right here. We're going to buy us a trend report. What you will need to do before you can do this, you will need to log in and make yourself a star account. It's free. You just put in your information. They'll give you a username and a login. It usually takes about a day for you to get your username and login. So you can't just jump in and automatically do it. I'm already logged in because I pulled a star report earlier. But I'll show you how we would go about it. I'm going to do it in Baltimore, right? But actually, you know what? No, this is what I'm going to do. Each one of y'all are going to tell me a hotel to look up. And I'm going to add it to the list of hotels we're going to put in this fake star report. I'm not going to buy it, but we're going to put it in the list. So you name me a hotel, and then we're going to see if that hotel actually reports 2-star. Okay? So we want to buy a custom trend report. All right. So we're in. Now we need to look up hotels. I'm going to do the first one. I'm going to see if the Hotel Revival, I was just talking about that joint. Let's see if the Hotel Revival in Baltimore, there it is. Let's see. Okay. We got the Hotel Revival. Let me actually expand my screen real quick. Hotel Revival.
So it looks like oh my goodness, it looks like they also pulled up
All the ones near it.
nearby,
all the hotels,
including the one you're looking at.
including the one I'm looking at. Was it a very important column? Is this one right here.
Okay.
If it's a check sign, that means that they reported their data just last month.
Okay.
If it's an X, they didn't. And
Okay.
9 times out of the 10, if it's an X, they just haven't.
Yeah.
In general, right? So we see the Hotel Revival. Last month they did. Okay, let's go over. Yep, you see the W. Each one,
Yeah.
each time you see a W, yep, they reported their data during that month. Perfect. So we
Okay.
can add that. Scroll down. Add that to our list.
Did you
Would it
want
also?
Baltimore?
You said what?
Did you want just Baltimore?
No, I don't want just Baltimore. I want y'all to give me. We could do whatever hotels you want.
Can we try the Eaton Hotel?
Come on, man. Can't we try to eat no that? Of course we
Stop.
can. Let's see what's going on. Oh, there it is. Who's the parent company? Great Eagle Hospitality, Langham Hospitality. Yep, they missed a few. Why you think they missed a few right here?
Right, COVID.
Come on, man. You so smart. COVID.
Mhm.
All right, we're gonna add Eaton. We're gonna add that one to the list. Okay. All right. It's saying it's still in red. Why? Because we don't have 4.
Or
We need to have
okay.
a minimum of 4 hotels down here at the bottom to complete a report. All right, Latasha, come on, give me a hotel.
Let's try 21C.
Okay. 21C, what, Kentucky? Or
No, I
Louisville?
think it's just 21C. They might be, I believe they're independent. So maybe
Yeah, but
not.
y'all got there's a bunch of 21C
Let's see,
hotels.
let's do the one in Louisville.
Okay, let me see.
Um,
What's you know the address?
mm-mm.
21C.
Or try, how about the Grady Hotel?
All right, let's see. How you spell that?
They spell it Grady.
Grady Hotel. West Main Street.
Yep, that's it.
I'm pretty sure 21C gonna pull up on this list. There it is, right up under.
There it is.
We're
Yeah,
gonna add both them joints. So it looks like the Grady just opened up
they did.
May 2021, because they aren't even reporting until May of 2021. All right.
Mhm.
So we're gonna add the Grady Hotel. We're gonna add 21C. John Jay, give me a hotel.
Made Hotel.
Made in New York. Okay.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one. All right. I like the
I feel
name
like
of
New
the
York
little
is
lobby.
such an interesting market where, especially for the independents, but I felt like we missed that mark of like affordability.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we did say I purchased in New York in like 1996. It's like so
Right.
expensive now.
Can y'all believe it? Y'all picked all the hotels y'all picked. Report to Star.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm gonna show you. Thank you for that. I'm gonna show you what it looks like when a property doesn't report to Star real quick. Let me see. I just did this one. I was trying to pull up comps for the Inn at Little Washington. And I was upset because this joint does not report to Star. Does not report nothing. Boom, no data. You can still, oh, dang. I just messed that all up. See that? I just messed it all up. But basically, that property does not report to Star. And I'm gonna show you what it looks like when you add it. You can still add it to your comp set, right? Add it to the list. It's gonna have an X, and that one's gonna stay red, no matter what other hotels you add to it. When you complete your report, it'll have that listed, but it obviously won't have any data associated with that hotel that will show up on your report.
Mm.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question.
Yep.
Because like this is the issue I ran into when I had to do my comp set.
Yep.
I couldn't find any, like the hotels that were close in size were
Mhm.
mostly independent and they didn't report. So I
Right.
had to use comps of other properties in other cities. They were more similar to what, I was looking to do. So what do you do in that instance when, for your local market, you really don't have comps that match what you're looking to do?
Great question. That's a great question. I actually had to pull two-star reports, unfortunately.
Mm.
So I had to pull as close as I could get in my market. And then I pulled comparable properties from neighboring markets, either in state or out of state, that are like sister cities to my market.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
And the reason why you might have to pull two, and obviously that's going to be a higher cost, but you just might have to eat that.
Yeah.
Is the properties in market, that's going to give you good data, especially as it relates to the occupancy,
Yeah.
right? So if
Yeah.
you know generally what the occupancy is for properties that are at least kind of close to the range, and if you know even the one that I showed you before, the Albany one, honestly, none of those properties were on par with what we were trying to do. They were all branded. There was nothing independent at all.
Yeah.
Right. So we pulled that just so we can have a baseline, and then I went back and pulled other properties similar size, similar market. So we had to pull two. Great question.
Got it.
I was gonna say too, like, even if it is brand, like, are you able, because like, for example, Hotel Revival, and sorry if this is like super delayed information, but that's technically a brand. You see how it's like JVD by Hyatt,
right?
Box out very much, like independent, if you didn't know that, you know what I mean? So it's just like, would that be also like a good like base as well? If it's close to like your concept is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, all right, so let me say this. The goal from a lender perspective is you craft the story, right? You are the crafter of whatever the narrative is that you need for a bank to understand. Banks are conservative by nature.
Correct.
Period. So if you're getting funding from a bank, it's not the same as you going and raising equity from specific investors. You need to be able to craft a story that is unhole pokeable. Can't poke no holes in this. Number one, I pulled the data of the hotels here. That gives us great occupancy data. But we really don't have comps in the market. We're setting our own market, right? Then I also pulled comps of similar properties. So then you can go on and detail, well, what are those similar properties in other markets? Is there a property in St. Louis that has done something similar, right? What are the other markets that you would consider similar to your market?
Right, right.
And then what are the properties similar?
Okay. Sounds good.
Makes sense?
This might be a very elementary question, but how do you
No
even
question is too elementary. Come on, John Jay.
how you even identify like what markets you want to pursue? Yeah.
Great question. So meaning like what cities or what?
Yeah, if you like just basically pay attention to like what's happening in different markets, or are you choosing where you're local to?
That's a great question. That is a great question, actually. I think for me, I've looked at markets that I think I can bring value add to, right? And then I love being close to my projects. Like it's been very hard. Part of the reason why I even moved to Baltimore is to be close to the project that I'm working on currently. It's hard to be far away from it because you spend so much time on it. Right. And especially early on, it's like, it's your baby. So if you really think about it as being your baby, it's really hard to be on the opposite side of the country as your baby.
Yeah.
So that's how I think about it. Is like I feel like I need to spend significant time. Even when we opened up our property in New Orleans, I literally moved there for 3 years. Wow. So that's just the way I think about it personally, but that's not the case for everyone. People develop, they'll be sitting here in DC and be doing projects all over the country. But for me, it's easier for me to be close to it.
Is everyone else on the call? Is the property you're pursuing in the market you live in, or is it outside of where you live?
Good question. Good question. I'm gonna let them answer that.
Yeah, I just moved to Costa Rica. I'm looking to build a property here.
Cool.
And welcome Christina to the group chat. And I was like,
apologies for being late. I had a time conflict, but happy to be here.
No worries. Happy to have you. Latasha, what about you?
So mine is in the city I live in. So yeah, it's gonna be my baby. So I gotta start close first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I'm located is too expensive for that. Again, I'm late on that way for Washington, D.C. But a little bit of like value add, and also a little bit of like market demand, but also like you just heard, I was like, I'm a little bit sensitive or understanding like pricing, like maybe how expensive it would be. So I kind of take all of those things in consideration. So like a tier two cities or like a Detroit, Philly, Baltimore, to me, they have substantial amount of like destination or market demand, right? Like reasons why guests will want to come, um, plus business. But then on the flip side, like costs isn't turned up like a DC or a New York or a Chicago, or you know what I mean, which is like consider all your tier ones. I would love to do that, but like again, I just feel as though I missed the wave. So I just kind of I'm considering multiple things.
Awesome. Yeah. And I would say, I know Chris, who's on, he's in Chicago. He's looking for something about an hour away from Chicago. I know who else? Hemang, he is based in Berkeley, but he owns a property in Indiana. So he probably is working on the property the farthest away. And then who am I missing? My sister down in
Kaylin.
Beck and Carl. And she's in Houston and she's looking for a property in Houston. I feel like I'm missing somebody else who hasn't joined yet. Oh, and then man, it's late, y'all. I'm blanking on names. My sister down in Jacksonville. She that's crazy. I just talked to her earlier. Well, anyway, she's gonna be mad when she sees this recording. She's in Jacksonville and she's working on a site in Jacksonville. Cool. But that was a good question. Any other questions? No other questions. I'm just curious. You know what I'm about to do? I'm about to look up and see if we got some stuff outside of the country. Let's look up. I'm just curious because I've never pulled comp data. I mean, it say Africa right there. Let me see. Costa Rica. Let's see. Interesting.
Christina, was it like a particular like reason, or like I'm seeing and or hearing conversations about interest in doing things out of the country? I definitely agree because America's ghetto. But in all seriousness, like my biggest fear would be like obviously like I don't speak the language. Like or like the culture. I mean, I'm assuming some like well-known tourist travel areas, which I don't know if that's where you're like aiming for in Costa Rica. I'm pretty sure they will understand English because again, like that tourist business, they are taught to, learn the worldwide language. But I was just curious, like maybe what inspired you to.
Yeah. So, like as Americans, it's funny because we're conditioned to like know ourselves as being so privileged, but like when it comes to language, we're one of the few countries in the world that isn't taught a secondary language as like a mandate starting in elementary school. So like having English being our native tongue, we're blessed in that fact in that way. But I know for me, like when I went to study abroad during college, I'm in class with people that are on their third or fourth language, but I'm just now just doing it, and it's like, oh, okay. It's not easy. So I decided to build outside of the country. One, personally, Costa Rica really just spoke to my healing practice and like stage of life. And then culturally, I chose Costa Rica because I wanted to create an experience that was in an environment that was conducive to healing for my people. So I'm a Black person, Black and brown folk. Energetically, Black and brown folk energetically, I don't feel like are thriving as at the highest levels they could be in the States because of what I believe to be like the energy on that land. Like there's a really long standing like embedded trauma that is just there and it's hard to get away from. And It's there psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, it's physically in the land. And so creating a space where people get to physically remove themselves from there is a big motivation for me, in addition to just looking at the contrast of Costa Rica. There is no military here. They're able to put in stronger amounts of funding into their healthcare system, into their education, and all of these things that they're able to build up because the finances were redirected from having a military.
Right.
The natural environment of the jungle, they have the highest biodiversity of both plant life and wildlife in the entire world. And so having that as a backdrop is really conducive again to like healing purposes, as well as adventure and just like excitement and doing adventure sport and
Yeah. It's like bringing natural light. Yeah, it's like you don't have to do much. It's already
it's there.
set up. Okay.
Christina,
Okay,
you done
that's
sold me. You done sold me. I'm ready to go.
Me too.
I'm ready to get up off the land. I'm ready. I'm done.
I don't need no. She won't need no marketing.
Okay.
I'm a good flash
You done
pitcher,
sold
though.
us. You've been working on your pitch because I'm ready to get up out of here.
No, seriously, America's got it. But okay, that makes sense. No, thank you for that insight, because I'm like, you start to see it or hear it a little bit more, but I'm always curious, like, because opening a
Also,
hotel
cost of living
anywhere,
is cheaper down here.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like when I am developing a property, it will still cost a lot of money, but it's like I'm buying materials from Costa Rica. So it's like the cost of those materials are substantially less as well. Plus the rates of hire for the staff is substantially less as well. Yet we get to charge dollar amounts from the revenue streams too.
Yeah,
okay. No, thank you for that.
that's lit.
Yeah, that is something to consider. Okay.
That's super lit. Man, thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right, let me go back. So we pulled the star. Y'all now know how to pull your own star report. You feel confident? You sure?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to tell you about my back of the napkin underwriting. You're going to hear people say this. You know, we just did a, rough back of the napkin, taking a look at the deal. This is important because hopefully in the course of your career, you will look at so many deals, right? You'll look at people will try and pitch you stuff. They'll try and show you stuff. It might be a good fit. It might not. You need to be able to quickly identify if this is going to work for you, right? Obviously, size is important, like the size of the asset. But you need to be able to identify, okay, if it's going to cost this much, is it really going to be worth it? Right? So for me, back in the napkin underwriting, I take a look at the acquisition cost. What's it going to cost me to actually purchase this property? Plus, what is it going to cost me to redevelop it? And that's going to equal my total cost. And is it going to make sense? You're going to also take a look at that total cost against something else that you'll see right here. But let's take a look at this property in and of itself. This is my initial underwriting. It's on the market for 1.7. Let's go back. It's on the market for 1.7. This property ain't worth 1.7. It's been on the market. We talked about this last time. It's been on the market for I don't know how long, right? It ain't worth 1.7. It's run down. It is horrible. I've walked it. Elevator doesn't work. I think people are living in here. It smells like cigarettes. It's terrible. So I don't think it's worth that much. I believe that at best, it's worth $1 million, right? At best, it's worth $1 million. And so that's where my offer is likely going to come in at, somewhere around there. I might go 1.1, but I'm not going any higher than that. So that's at a cost per key of $50,000 per key. So it's on the market for $85,000 per key. I believe that it's worth around $50 per key. But I also believe that the development cost is going to be pretty expensive. And I have that determined as being about $5 million of development costs. New elevator, creating a rooftop, renovating each and every room, redoing the lobby, There's some ADA considerations that I feel like are going to be important. Adding a ramp, etc. So my total cost per key is going to be $300K per room. Why is that important? Right? That's my initial underwriting. I haven't done any deep dive. I haven't gone through the details. I haven't built out a budget. I haven't gone through a pro forma. That's just me taking a look, understanding that the elevator is going to cost a lot to be put in, or the existing one is going to cost a lot to get fixed. I'm just estimating it's probably going to cost me about $5 million. And that's me knowing other developments similar and what those costs have been, right? So this is just back of the napkin initial underwriting. But these are a few tips and tricks. And this goes back to what we first talked about earlier. How do you figure out how many keys can fit into a property, right? So say we're not talking about an existing hotel. Say we're talking about a building, or Latasha, you had talked about, I think you said 50,000 square feet?
40,000.
40,000 square feet.
Yeah.
40,000 square feet. Is that what you had initially looked at, or is that?
It actually, well, you know what? No, actually, I was looking at smaller.
Okay.
I was looking around like 25,000
Okay.
square feet. Yeah.
All right. So this is the way that I typically break down and figure out how many keys can fit into a property. I will take the total property square footage and divide that by 500 square feet, right? Most hotel rooms are not 500 square feet, right? They're more like 300, 350. So basically, by you dividing by that 500, you're determining how many rooms you can get, the corridors, and then allowing space for restaurant and lobby. And why is this actually pretty accurate? I'm giving an example, and disregard that dollar sign, but I'm giving an example of the property that we're looking at right now. 11.7 as far as the square footage is concerned. You divide that by 500, it's 23.4 rooms. So what's interesting about that is the property is listed on LoopNet as having 20 keys. Technically, it's 22 keys. There's an additional unit that is like an apartment, and then there's a manager suite additionally. So that's not reflected in what was said, but when you take a deeper dive, it's saying 22, I'm getting 23, right? So it gives you a pretty spot on number as far as how many keys can fit into a property. So Natasha, let's take your property envelope. You said 40,000.
Mm-hmm.
Let's divide that by 500 and let's see how many keys we get.
So that's 80 keys.
Man, that's 80 keys.
Ooh.
Still allowing for room for a lobby, still allowing room for a restaurant. That's pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate because our property in Albany is about 50, 51, and we have 80 keys.
Okay.
Yeah. And a huge portion of that, we have a huge ballroom too. So that's not taking that into consideration. In that ballroom, if we didn't have that ballroom, we probably would have closer to 100 keys, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another tip and trick that most people will use, and you probably heard this, and she has a deal. You want to compare the cost per key to what you envision the ADR being, to the nearest 100,000, right? You want those to be as close together as possible. You'll see that when we go into the pro forma, that's where you have the best profitability. So if you're spending 300,000 per room, you want your ADR to be close to $300 per night. All right? If you spend 150,000 per room, you want your ADR to be close or better than $150 per night. right? So that's something real easy and simple, allowing you to take a look at a project. You might see something that, is appealing on LoopNet, or you might see something that's for sale in your area, to be able to look and say, okay, it's going to cost me $600,000 per room to renovate this or to redevelop it, but am I going to be able to get close to $600 per night?
So wait, Damon, can we go back to the previous
Yep.
slide now?
Previous slide.
Whichever slide had so total cost per key after development,
Yep.
300,000. So you're hoping to get about, give or take, 300 ADR for about 22 rooms, which in the DMV market is doable. I think about the gram.
It could be doable.
It depends on how you do it up and sell it, of course.
It could be doable.
But however, whatever team you decide they could ramp it if they really, because the gram, we should have had you look up the gram. The gram to me in DC is like the perfect example of that, like 70 something rooms, independent, but you're going to pay 3-4 a pop.
Right.
Okay.
So
That makes sense. That was never broken down really clear to me. That's good to know.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting metric that allows you just to quickly look at deals and see if they make sense for you. It's not always the case, but when we do the underwriting, you'll realize it's pretty spot on. And you don't want to spend too much developing the property. For example, in a certain market, if it's going to cost you $400 to $500 per key, it's just not going to make sense, because you're never going to be able to get the rate that supports it. Right? It's too expensive of a redevelopment cost for you to undertake and make it make sense. So very important things to consider. And I think that might be all I got for the site identification. Y'all got any other questions? Any questions top of mind?
I got one.
Yeah.
What about when it comes to parking? Because I know we talked about that was one of the list for new development.
Yep.
So what are the things you need to consider as far as like the size of the parking lot? What type of parking lot? Should it be a part of the building? Should it be just flat surface? Like, what do you kind of consider for that?
So there's a few considerations that you want to think about, right? Are you going to have valet? Right? Is there a nearby lot that allows you to valet? Right? Can you lease spots from a local lot? If you're going to do ground up, you likely would want to have at least a spot for every single person that's going to stay there, just in case, right? At least. But then what if you have a ballroom? What if you have big meetings and special events? What if you have a 200-person wedding? What if you have a 200-person wedding and the restaurant is buzzing and you're 100% occupancy, right? So these are all things that you would like to consider. And when I say that you might want to have a room or a parking spot for each room, that's also taken into consideration that like some people just ain't gonna rent a car. They're not gonna drive to your spot. They're gonna fly, hop on an Uber, and that's how they're gonna get around. So most people won't have a car, but I mean you can probably guesstimate that 50% will. And if you have a restaurant or a rooftop or other amenities that people are gonna use, yeah, they're gonna need to park. So those are the considerations. Also, if it's a new development, a ground up development, the city itself might have their own mandate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes that mandate is determined by the transit system that exists in that area, right? So in DC, you don't have the same mandates that you have in other cities, because the assumption is like people are going to fly in, be able to take the train to the, or, you know, take some other alternate form of transportation, right? And so that reduces, you could potentially reduce the number of parking spots that you would need.
Okay. Okay.
That was gonna be my question, Damon, like location. And then two, we were looking, when we were participating, we were looking, myself and my business partner were looking at a property in Tampa, and they were, you know how those areas where like they're, let's call it what it is, gentrifying or developing mixed use and condos. And so we were also saying like, because this question came up, because we were going to do a new development, and the question came up about parking. And could you like, if there's existing parking, like we were saying, like, well, can we partner with like the residential condos or like the mixed use development that was already there? So is that what you mean by lease when you partner with the existing?
Yep. I've worked for properties that have leased space in parking garages. So, you know, you'll take 100 spots in a parking garage. The assumption is that this parking garage is not ever at 100%. And so you would just lease it for a certain amount. There's also, sorry, excuse me, sometimes the lots are city owned, right? And so if there's a city owned lot nearby, then you're working that out with the city. They don't mind, right? They would actually appreciate it, because you can't forget that hotels and hospitality are bringing tax revenue into the city. So you are an asset to any municipality. And that tax revenue can be pretty significant. And let's think about it from the city's perspective. How can you increase the tax revenue without increasing taxes for your constituents? Hotels allow you to do that, right? Travelers are actually paying that tax. If you look at a bill, you're gonna see especially if you come stay in DC, you're gonna see about 7 different taxes on your on your bill. You're gonna pay a city tax, you're gonna pay an occupancy tax, you're gonna pay sales tax. But that transient occupancy tax, which can range from like 4 to 7%, that specifically goes to the city. Any other questions? We got 15 more minutes, y'all. What y'all got?
I'm not sure where everyone's at on like their stages of development. But I'm very new, and I just had a big learning curve in starting this first project, in understanding what all the acquisition costs were going to be. And so I think maybe that topic could be cool if we could dive in more on like, okay, what exactly do we need to pay for upfront before we can even start development?
Yep.
I had my app handed to me. Okay. I was like, oh, you thought.
Real quick, I'll touch on that briefly. And Christina, one of the things that we're doing, and you might have caught it, we're actually going to pursue a deal through the course. So on all my emails, as I go through and I pursue this project in Baltimore, you will be blind copied on all those emails. And so you'll be able to see what that process is going to look like.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's super beneficial. Smart. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we will see that it does cost a lot of money. Some of the things to consider from an upfront cost, obviously you need to do your market study, your feasibility study. A lot of times there's the legal and drafting up either LOIs or purchase and sale agreements. I've typically done that on my own. Some would say like not to do that, but I was pre-law, so I feel like, I know a little bit. But I've typically done my own letters of intent and my own purchase and sale agreements, and drafted up my own contracts. And so I'm not advising you to do that, but it's been lit. You know what I'm saying? I've been saving money and I ain't made no mistakes. Cause the interesting thing about it is all of the templates are the same for the most part. The times where you really are going to need significant changes is when you have a very complicated deal. But unless it's complicated and there's like some different land issues you need to work around, for me, it's never needed the help of a lawyer at that stage. There are stages that you definitely are going to need a lawyer, but it's not at that stage for me. And so that's the reason why I sent you the draft of the LOI and I made it in a doc. So you can edit and make changes and do whatever you need to that. I'm going to add 2 more variations to that into the member portal. So you'll be able to see what the ones that I've submitted over time have added different language to account for different things, right? So I have a clause in one that allows you to buy more time. So going back to your question about some of those upfront costs, obviously your marketing, your feasibility, your legal, and then the cost to secure the property, right? So example, site that we're working on in Maryland, we went under contract at $5 million. The initial deposit was $50,000. And then we had a 3-month due diligence period. That $50,000 was fully refundable for those 3 months. I put in a clause that at the end of those 3 months, we could extend the due diligence for another 45 days if we added an additional $15,000. Okay. So we get down to it. We feel like we don't have enough of the information we need. We still raising capital. We could add some money and extend that due diligence. So now we've put $65,000 up, still refundable. Okay, still refundable. I just added to it. At the end of that due diligence period, that deposit was to increase to $200,000. Okay, I'm not advising everybody to do this, but when you dealing with certain properties, you know, that's just what it accounts for. The hope for us was that when it increased to 200,000, we will have raised capital by then, right? So then at that point, we're not concerned about, you know, letting the money go hard, because, and what I mean by the money go hard is that the deposit becomes non-refundable. So we have to close, otherwise we lose that money. Give you another example. This was in Oakland. We went under contract, and I remember this vividly. We went under contract in 2019 on my birthday, Juneteenth, 2019. Went under contract, put up a refundable deposit of $300,000 for 3 months. We got to the end of the 3 months. We thought we were going to close. We didn't close, and we lost that $300,000 deposit. I know it hurts my soul to say it. We lost that $300,000 deposit, and that was a bought lesson. I will never do it again. If I feel like I'm not going to close, I'm pulling out the deal. You don't want to lose money. You can't afford to lose no money, right? But these are the upfront costs. In addition to that, there's other reports. So I'm not sure about for international properties, but I know stateside, you need a phase 1 environmental study. This will be covered in the next week's course, though. Environmental studies, surveys of the land, if you're doing raw land, if you're doing ground up, all of that has a cost. A property assessment, a property condition assessment. Property condition assessment maybe costs $3,000. Structural engineer coming to take a look to make sure that the bones of the building are good, another $2,000. Getting the different surveys, maybe another $5,000. You could end up spending upwards to 30 to 40 or $50,000 just on due diligence for your project. It's possible.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
I got quotes for feasibility tests from 2 different architects, and they both quoted me like $20,000 just to do or was that to do the master plan too? Hold on, I might be mixing things up. I feel like that was, never mind. I think that might have included the master plan.
If it includes your master plan, that's probably pretty spot on. And if I remember your property correctly, you
Yeah,
have a lot of land,
right.
right?
It's like
And
12
so
acres.
to do one with that much acreage, yeah, it would cost quite a bit.
Okay.
20 grand wouldn't be outside the norm.
Okay.
What I
I'm
also
like, are they
will,
both trying to get over on me?
right. One of the things that is at all of your disposal, there are a couple of groups that will fund your pre-development costs. Okay, we talked about that.
Yeah.
There are a couple of groups that will give you a loan to fund your pre-development costs. What is that contingent upon? That you have at least lined up some of the financing
Okay.
for the deal, right? So it's backed by whatever financing you've already gotten. So if you raise a little bit of capital, they'll help you and give you a loan, maybe $100,000 loan that can allow you to pay for all these things to do all that. Because that's sometimes it's a huge upfront cost and a huge barrier
Yeah.
entry, right? So
Where do we find out about these programs?
next week, baby, you got to tune right in. You got to tune in next week. I got you. And I'll even be able to share. So next week is understanding the trades. But we'll dive deeper into some of those the upfront costs and the programs. We had talked about that, I think, last week. In the notes that I had gotten, it was understanding some of the upfront costs. So we'll touch on that for sure. Any other questions? And when I say trades, that is the architect, that's interior designer, that is general contractor, that's your legal, that's your structural engineer, MEP, lighting, architect. There's just so much.
I have a question.
Yep.
So for your first property, did you take out a loan or had you saved money? How did you handle the cost?
Man, great question. Great question. So our first property, small property in New Orleans, we had actually raised venture capital. So we raised money against the brand. We raised $500,000, and people invested in the brand. So we did that. We raised $500,000 at a $5 million valuation, actually. Yeah. We raised $500,000 on a $5 million valuation. We and a little bit less than 500 grand. So we only gave up like 9% of the company in exchange for it. And then that allowed us the upfront capital to.
When you say the brand was it the property or your hospitality group?
The brand, the group. So of Homage Hospitality. So we sold 9% of the actual brand in exchange for that.
And got it. And so was the hotel a part of the pitch or just the business?
The business was a part of the pitch, and then we were able to do with those funds whatever we needed to do. We sat on them for about 8 months. We were actually pursuing a larger project in Oakland. It didn't work out. We started to look at other markets because Oakland was just getting too gentrified too fast, and we couldn't afford anything. So then as we started looking at other markets, New Orleans actually felt like a better fit. We were able to buy our property with a significant down payment. But the way we did it, and I would say it was probably product of us being in the Bay Area and being in Oakland, being so close to so much venture. that it was
Mhm.
like, let's just try and do it that way. It just made a lot more sense.
Can you talk
Um,
about the pros and cons of having investors buy into the brand versus buying into a specific property?
ooh, man,
Because that seems very like long term,
right.
uh,
um,
especially really like you, for example, having multiple properties across multiple locations. Now, like they have a percent ownership in all of that, which can be a plus or be a negative. But yeah, I'd just like to, I guess, learn more about your thought process.
yeah, okay, so the thought process there was number one, sell as little of the company as possible to get what we need to start, right? Because what you'll then do, you buy your first property, especially if you are the manager, you're going to collect a fee, right? You're going to collect the acquisition fee, you're going to collect the management fee, and you'll do that over time. Hopefully you can parlay that into your second deal, your third deal, etc. But you just need that first one. And so the way we have envisioned it is like, okay, we'll take in some capital. 9% of the company is not that much to give up to get our first project, get our names out there, get some publicity and get the ball rolling. I think that the one pro was that we weren't under a time clock in raising the capital.
Okay.
So if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
if you're pursuing a property, it's not like you have an infinite amount of time
Right.
to
Someone
buy
else
the
buying
property,
them.
right?
Yeah.
But we had money that we just had like we had money in a bank account that then we could just now look at stuff. And then we didn't have to go out and ask somebody, hey, we need a down payment, we need a deposit, we need this, we need that. We just had the money and we could
Dang,
go
now you
do it.
got me thinking.
I mean, that's what this is supposed to do. That's what this
Right.
is
Yeah.
for. That's what
Hmm.
this is for. But then when you're looking at a site, it's like you're up against the clock.
Right.
At best, you're going to have 6 months to try and raise however much money. Now, I will say this. I'll add this caveat to that. $5 million is a
That's
lot
about
of
it.
money to raise. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a lot
Right. Yeah.
versus 500,000,
Right.
right? So if we were pursuing a big enough deal, the 500,000 really wouldn't have done much. We still would have had to go raise money,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay. Question off of that. Okay. So, because for me, like I'm building from ground up, for example. So cool. If I say I raise like $3 million for preliminary costs or like acquisition costs, and but that investment isn't going to the property, it's going to my business. Then when I start development, now that's like a 30 million, $40 million raise. And that's not something I would want coming out of the business. That's something I would want going straight to but I guess that could be a separate, that doesn't have to be the same cap table.
No, it definitely
Like the
doesn't.
3 mil could be to the company, and then we have a whole other raise for the property.
Right.
Those are separate. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. These are good questions. What else? What else y'all got?
I guess to like considering the timing of when you were probably looking for investment for your first property, the economic climate was different. But just considering like what's happening in the landscape, like what's your perspective on, I don't want to say the probability because I feel like anything is possible, but like just getting investment and pitching like during this time to raise capital, like what's your perspective on how it
Yeah, so it's twofold. My perspective is number one, you can buy yourself more time. So typically in a seller's market, sellers want quick closing timelines, right? They want to be able to close in 60 days, 90 days, etc. now you can say, hey, the economic climate is tough. Securing debt is tough. I need like 6 months to close, which is not crazy, right? 180 days to close is not crazy, but you can now afford yourself that much time. So you can do a deal where it's a 90-day due diligence period with another 90-day financial contingency, or even a 120-day due diligence period with a 90-day financing contingency. And the beauty in that is like just having more time. Like, who knows? Things change so fast. Like, who knows where things are going to be in April? Who knows where things are going to be in June? And as long as you have enough time to go out and raise the capital, your odds improve drastically. So I'll give you an example. I just got the financing for the project that I'm working on in Maryland. I went under contract in June, right? And I just last week secured it. So that at least that took me was the better part of almost 6 months, like 5 months. And so another stat I'll tell you is I can track everyone who's looked at the deck for the deal. Over 600 people looked at that deck. So I needed to go through 600 people to
Wow.
raise, how much did we raise? $4 million, $5 million. So
I'm sorry, can you repeat that stat one more time?
I that deck, the unique visitors that saw that deck was over 600 individual people.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
You tracked on Dachshund?
Yes.
Okay.
Tracked on Dachshund. I highly recommend Dachshund because you get all the emails, you can track it, you can see what pages people are looking at. But yeah, like raising capital is how many doors can you knock on? And a lot of those people that looked at it, I didn't send the deck to 600 people. I'll send the deck to somebody, they'll share it with other people, they'll share, you know what I'm saying? They'll send it out. So I might have sent it out to maybe 200, 250 over that period of time, maybe. And then a lot of that was just like kind of, secondhand. But that just gives you kind of the stats on how long it took me to. And another stat, of the 4 or so million that we raised, 2 of that came from one person. Right. So then I think the rest is like split up over like 15 people. But 2 million out of that 4 is one group, one family office. So it's a numbers game. So hopefully that answers your question. It's a numbers game. The more time that you can get in this climate, I would recommend it. I wouldn't put a huge dollar amount as far as your deposit. Like, no, I wouldn't make that deposit go hard anytime soon. But I would give yourself just as much time as possible. Another note, when I had to get the property under contract, I didn't have $50,000 to put in escrow. So I had to call somebody. So I was like, I made calls. I was like, hey, can I borrow 50,000? I'm gonna give it right back to you. Cause I'm not gonna close on it unless I have the money raised, right? So I'm not gonna lose your deposit, but hey, I need 50 racks. So y'all need to work on getting your 50 rack person.
That's real.
Who's that person you gonna be able to call and be like, hey, I need 50, I need 25, I just need to hold it. You're gonna get it right back. Don't even worry about it. So that's the goal, is like who can you call when you need that lifeline? And I'm so thankful, right? Like that person just got his deposit back last week. So he helped me out, basically loaned it to me. I drafted up a loan doc. He loaned it to me for basically 5 months. I sent it back to him last week. All good. So then next time I need to do it again, I'm hitting the same dude up. Like, bro, what's up? I had you last time. I got you again.
Well, how were you
That's
able
good.
to like return his funds, if that makes sense? So was it like the deposit just got
So
back? Or?
yeah, good question. The basically you replaced the deposit.
Oh, okay.
So I'll explain. Initially, $50,000 deposit. Then the second it increases to 200,000. But what we did is we just replaced his 50 with 200,000. If we had the money in there initially, we would have just added 150,000. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So once we actually had the money raised, okay, we flipped it. We replaced it with 200.
Okay.
Y'all getting the gems, y'all. I'm giving y'all the gems. These are the things I didn't know. I had to learn. I had to learn the hard way.
So grateful. This is like, yeah, I can't even describe how grateful I am.
Nah, man. I'm happy to be able to give y'all this information. This is gold. Y'all don't even know how gold it is until y'all pursuing the deal and you figuring it out. But I think that's the goal. And honestly, I told you about the guest speakers that I'm gonna have. I really want you to network. And I'm thinking about one of the days, kind of breaking us out into more intimate breakout rooms where you can get like some more intimate one-on-one time with some of the guest speakers, because I think a lot of them are going to be great resources for you. Real great resources. There's a couple $50,000 phone calls up in there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So just keep that in mind as people come through. You gotta use your resources. We all Black. All of us are Black. So I could speak the real right now. You gotta use your resources. We ain't got it like that. So being able to network and know people that when you need to get what you need to get can be in your corners is going to be very important. Any other questions? You got like 5 minutes, y'all. Anything else? All right, it's lit. It's lit. So reminder, next week will be our last class, then we're gonna have a break. John Jay, if you could do the homework assignment on there, it's real easy. I know when you hear homework, it sounds like it's a lot. It's super easy. It's basically the icebreaker. But you actually putting in the information. If you could do that, that would be helpful. And then over that winter break, what I'm gonna start doing is putting together your pro formas and your models so that we can use that when we resume on the 12th. So
Is the office hours basically like you have to reserve a slot and then we get one-on-one time with you?
yes, indeed. Yes,
So that was
indeed.
today?
You can do that. You know what? I do have it set up for tomorrow. I'm gonna have to cancel that for tomorrow because tomorrow is crazy for your boy. So, but we can do if you want. Are you available by any chance on Sunday?
Yeah.
Okay, let's set aside some time on Sunday. That's like my most wide open day, actually.
Okay.
But tomorrow is nuts.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so let's set up some time.
So where do you have your hours posted? Are they in the members area? Because I looked, I didn't see it. So
it's if you look at the calendar. So
okay.
the calendar has all of them, but I do have it listed for tomorrow. I'm gonna have to cancel tomorrow because I don't even think I have a free moment. It's crazy, y'all. It's crazy, y'all. It's lit, but it's crazy.
Congrats on closing.
No, we ain't closed yet. We ain't closed yet.
Okay.
We're about to. We're getting close.
Well,
And
congrats on being
I just took on another project too. So
Of course you did.
yeah. So yeah, we're getting close though. It's crazy, man. But I'm honestly, this is the highlight of my week. This is fun. This is fun. And I'm hoping that you get the full benefit. My goal is just to make sure that you have way more knowledge than I had when I started. So everything that I've learned, I'm trying to pass it on. So you're just in a better position. So hopefully looking up the STAR report was helpful. Hopefully the back of the napkin stuff, we'll do understanding the trades. Yeah, we're gonna get this thing going. How y'all feeling?
One last question is, when the recordings, are they gonna be in
You
the?
already know they're gonna be uploaded. Yeah, they're gonna be uploaded onto the members area for sure. I think I might, this one, I have to see it from a size perspective. I might have to do like a YouTube situation and then upload it. So we'll see, but it will be uploaded by the
Okay.
week.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
No more questions, I promise.
Oh, feel free, feel free. This is technically until 9:45. So if y'all got anything else, let me know. Speak now or hold your peace until the 15th. Nothing else? All right. Well, I enjoyed it. And I will see y'all the 15th. John Jay, let's get together. Text me. Let's figure out a time on Sunday, and then we can do our office hours.
Will do. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Great. Thanks. Have a good night.
All right.